Now, in terms of new processes, the development of high pressure processing using hydrostatic pressure has given us some great fillip, particularly in the seafood industry, in relation to oysters, crabs and lobsters in particular. What the process does is to put the pack containing the seafood into a container full of water. It's then sealed, and then water is then pumped in using a high pressure pump. If you want to think of a high pressure pump, think of an homogenizer. If you're familiar with homogenizers, that works very effectively as a high pressure pump, and you just build up the pressure. Now, we use pressures up to 700 megapascals, and for those of you who don't know what a megapascal is and want to stay with sort of miles and feet and inches, it's 101,526 pounds per square inch. Now, remember that, because there's going to be an exam at the end. And the effect is to prevent bacteria from multiplying, and also the enzyme systems from going on. In other words, the pressure does this, but don't think it actually squeezes these things to death. It doesn't quite do it like that. But the point is that it's been used very effectively for crabs, oysters and lobsters, and it allows you to shuck those crustacea after, and they come out, the meat comes out quite easily and cleanly, and so from a packaging point of view you can then put them, as it were, into preformed packs, and the consumer is able to get at the meat easily without having to sort of scoop it out and so on. So that's taken on quite successfully in a number of places. With regard to fish, when you raise the pressure up to 200 megapascals or 29,007 psi, the flesh takes on a brown appearance and it looks as though it's been cooked. We might look at that again in another context, because even though it's caused some discoloration, there may be ways of manoeuvring ourselves around that, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Now, the use of high pressure processing actually goes back to the 1980s, when the Japanese first used it for jam. And it's hard to understand why you'd want to use it for jam, but they did it and did it very successful, and that was followed by fruit juices. The primary objective of that was to, in fact, to try and retain natural flavour. Now, in 2007, it was estimated that 115 commercial plants around the world, and some 20% of these plants were used for seafood, principally crabs, oysters and lobsters. And if any of you are interested in pursuing that, there's a very good paper put out by the Chipping Campden Food Research Association in the UK in conjunction with Norconserve, the Institute of Fish Processing and Preservation Technology in Stavanger. And that gives you a great deal of detail and background on the process and what you can and can't achieve. Why I delayed a bit there and said, well, we might come back to these coloured processes, and I'm just going to do a bit of a jump to talk about supermarkets. Now, Tesco in the UK has some 22% of the chilled fish volume, and 60% of that is pre-packed. These pre-packs are diverse and include ready meals or part prepared meal components, such as pre-battered or crumb fish, and it's a market for continuous growth. The first speaker this morning talked about Euromonitor. If you actually go back over Euromonitor back into the 1980s, you'll see that ready markets have done nothing but just increase in Europe. And the reason being is that people don't live busy lives. If two people are going out to work, then obviously they want meals which take a minimum amount of time to prepare and so on. And the concept is that you buy this ready meal and you come home, you bung it you use boil in the bag, or you put it in the microwave and so on and so forth, and there you are, you've got a meal prepared. And you'll notice, if you look at supermarkets in Europe, that these ready meal areas are actually right up close to the front of the supermarket. And it's very interesting to see supermarket behaviour. People who come into the supermarket after office hours, as it were, spend roughly up to about 5, 10, 12 minutes in the supermarket, and they do all their shopping right across. They graze along the front of supermarkets. Whereas during the day it becomes an opportunity for social contact by those who are retired, and they spend up to 20 to 40 minutes. And so you put all the things that they want right at the back of the what's his name, and so on. It's why I refuse to go out shopping with my wife. I always say, look, if you went round the back, you find all the stuff you want far quicker. But I can't cope. My wife goes out, as I'm sure your wives do, with long lists, but never reads the list or leaves the list at home, or you find it there. Anyway, forget about that. And I just found out this is all going on film. I think this is going to do the countryside. Okay, so the latest we heard from Bernard about the business of steam cooking, and certainly that's taking off. There's also another process which uses micro-perforated film, which as it expands, so the perforations open up and the steam outlet is controlled. So there are various ways of approaching this. One of the things that I'm quite passionate about in relation to ready meals is the use of time temperature indicators. In doing some work, for 10 years I was involved as the Minister's appointee for the Cook Freeze facility in Brisbane, which was one of the largest in the Southern Hemisphere, and we supplied ready meals to hospitals. And one of the things I'm really quite keen about is the use of time temperature indicators. Now they're really not expensive to put on packs, and some work done about 3 or 4 years ago for meat and livestock, I used these and I found them very effective indeed. And we found that by using them as a monitoring technique, that you could feel confident about the shelf life. You know, if this thing hadn't changed colour, then you knew it was okay. And we were keeping ready meals. We actually kept them at home. I made my wife run the fridge at a proper temperature. Housewives don't run fridges at proper temperatures in today. They think cold is 10 or 12 degrees Celsius. It isn't. It's supposed to be down much lower than that. And if we could induce the population to do that and to run those fridges with confidence at lower temperatures, then I'm sure we'd see a lot fewer problems. But we were actually able to keep ready meals for 3 months without any trouble at all by running the fridge around about 3 degrees Celsius. So just bear that in mind. Sainsbury's in the UK ran with time temperature tags for 12 months and put up their sales by 40%. Now that has to tell you something. The way these tags work is they're waxes which melt at different temperatures. This is one method, so that if the temperature goes up, the wax melts and seeps out into the porous structure around which the tag is made of, and you can't reverse that. You can't reverse a time temperature tag. So it's a foolproof method and it works very well. Now, talking about ready meals, let's talk about a new development which opens up and expands the whole area of ready meals. And let me just go back again to this question of the brown fish. There's no reason why you can't, with a reasonable degree of confidence, look at using that fish, which you know is quite satisfactory after high pressure processing, and disguise the colour by simply crumbing it. There's no reason why one can't do that quite legitimately. We do it for many things if you but knew. If you look on the sides of labels sometimes, we've got nothing else to do, you'll find that added colours pop up all sorts of places, believe you me. But there's a new development which is perhaps more exciting, and that is the introduction of a new microwave oven by Samsung.